Hello everyone, hope you are doing well. Thanks for joining us in Developer Student Clubs IIITA Allahabad's first event to get you all started in your open source journey. We are elated to have with us two amazing open sourcers, Shivansh and Deepak, to break this down for us. So without wasting any time, let's dive straight in. Over to you, Shivansh.
Hello everyone, I am Shivansh Tiwari and I am currently a final year student in IIITA Allahabad. So today I'll be giving you a brief introduction about open source. Then we'll be talking about Hacktoberfest, and mainly basically we'll be talking about how you should approach the open source projects and how you should contribute. So let's get started first by talking a bit about what open source is. Yeah, so first thing, we'll introduce what exactly open source is. And whenever I talk about open source anywhere, or whenever I have a discussion with anyone regarding open source, the first thing that comes to everyone's mind is, why should I contribute to open source? Like, what exactly is the incentive for me? I'm not getting any kind of money. I'm not getting any business model out of my product. So why should I contribute to open source? So for that, first we need to know what open source is. So the basic definition of open source would be, open source is the free software that the users have the complete freedom to use, copy, change, distribute and change the software. So like suppose तुमने कोई कोड लिखा and तुमको लग रहा है कि वो कोड काफी अच्छा है, तो तुम उसको ओपन सोर्स करोगे एंड बाकी लोग आके उस पर कंट्रीब्यूट करना स्टार्ट करेंगे. लाइक इन अ सिमिलर फैशन अगेन, अगर तुम्हें कोई प्रोजेक्ट दिखता है जो प्रोजेक्ट काफी अच्छा है एंड यू थिंक कि इसमें एक इशू है जो कि तुम ठीक कर सकते हो, कोई पर्टिकुलर सेगमेंट है जो कि तुम ठीक कर सकते हो, सो यू कैन गो देयर, यू कैन ओपन द इश्यूज एंड यू कैन स्टार्ट कंट्रीब्यूटिंग. So in a nutshell, basically the recipe of any given work is shared and is free for everybody. So let's look into an example in a very basic terms, just to make it more clear in our minds. So let's go to the example. Suppose you want to build a new house, okay? And the first step while building a new house is that you hire an open source architect. Now the skill set of the architect is कि उसको तो बस basic architecture बनाते आता है घर का, and he doesn't know how to actually construct the house. He doesn't have the resources to construct the house. So what he will do for you is, he will construct the whole architecture of your house and he will give it to you. Okay. Now the whole architecture is open source. The whole floor plan and everything is open source. So you have complete freedom to change it according to your needs and hire anybody. And like suppose अगर तुमने company X को hire किया, so this is the plan to build the house, and now the job of company X is to actually start the construction, right? So what company X would do is they will look into the architecture that was designed by somebody else, and because it is open source, they have all the knowledge of how to actually continue their work. Okay, so they will start working according to your needs and according to their skill set. Now suppose at a given point of time you realize that X is not doing a good quality of work, and what you need to do is you need to hire another company for the same. Okay, so when you hire another company, the thing is, what the biggest difficulty is that when a new company comes and starts working on a particular project, then they don't know how exactly the project is built. But when we talk about open source, the advantage is that everything is open and all the resources are available for you. You can look into, if we talk in terms of software, so you can look into the code base, you can see what exactly has been done in the project. So it is very easy for company Y to start the construction, and then the company Y completes your work properly. Now suppose you are living in that house, and what happens is there is an electricity issue. Okay, so there is a group of people who know how to fix electricity, but they don't know how to build the house, right? So they will come and they will contribute at your house according to their skill set. So they know how to fix the electricity, they will come, and because the whole architecture of the house and whole structure of the house is known to you and to the guy who is fixing the electricity, so it's very easy for him to start working on that. So this is the, in a very brief example of how open source works. Next slide. Now we'll talk a bit about some of the myths of open source, right? Because there are a lot of myths regarding open source, and the biggest myth is कि अरे career नहीं है open source में. Okay, so the first point when we talk about FOSS is that F in FOSS stands for free of cost, and that is not at all true. When we talk about free and open source software, the thing about free is that it is free of speech, that you have all the right to copy that work, to use that work, change it according to your needs, and even redistribute it. So it's not about the money, it's about how you are using it. Okay, so that is the first myth that we need to break. Second thing is that open source is less secure, and that is also a very big myth. Security is basically in terms of the data which is going inside your project. And when we talk about open source, there are a lot of people who are contributing to that project and who are giving a lot of ideas and who are also introducing different type of attacks that can happen on your software. So when a lot of people are working, so in that case, open source softwares are also secure. That is not true. Then one of the biggest myths is that it is done only by students कि हाँ जिनको बस सीखना होता है वही लोग open source करते हैं. So that is not at all true. If you go into GitHub and you start exploring about some of the people, literally ऐसे ऐसे डेवलपर्स हैं जिनको लोग फॉलो करते हैं, जिनकी एक पूरी पूरी कल्ट बनी हुई है. ऐसे डेवलपर्स भी ओपन सोर्स में कंट्रीब्यूट करते हैं. The next point is no one gets paid here. This is not true because people say that open source is entirely free and there is no incentive for you when you are working in open source. That is not true. There are companies like Google, IBM, and such huge companies who pay their developers money to keep contributing to open source because that is also benefiting them as well as the community. So in that case, money is not at all a problem when we talk about open source. Poor code quality, this is the biggest rubbish thing that I've heard about open source. Code quality is perfectly maintained when we work on an open source project. There are maintainers who are working on that project. Okay, so this is somehow linked to a myth that you have no control over your project when you publish your project on open source. So this is not at all true because there are maintainers who have the right to see what code is getting merged into their in their repository and what code should not get merged into their repository. So the code quality is properly maintained. And then when we talk about lack of opportunity, so we'll be talking a bit more about this in the next section. Okay, so now we'll talk about the why. So why you should contribute to open source. So let's dive into that. Before talking about the opportunities in open source, first let's talk about why you should contribute to open source, right? So I'm just assuming that there are some of the people who I'm assuming that the audience right now who is watching this stream is in their college and is in a second year, third year, like that. Okay, so point ye hai ki when you are in second year, when you are in third year, when you are actually exploring the opportunities, when you are thinking about कि भाई क्या करना है मुझे, let's say कि तुम competitive coding नहीं कर रहे हो, उतना ज्यादा तुम उस पर काम नहीं कर रहे हो. सो द पॉइंट इज कि अब तुम्हें ओपन सोर्स में क्या करना है, ठीक है. सो द बिगेस्ट एडवांटेज व्हेन यू स्टार्ट वर्किंग इन ओपन सोर्स इज दैट जो लोग ऑलरेडी उन प्रोजेक्ट्स पे काम कर रहे हैं वो उनके पास ऑलरेडी बहुत ज्यादा एक्सपीरियंस है. एंड द सेकेंड थिंग इज वो बहुत बड़े बड़े प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, लाइक उनका जो मेंटेनर्स हैं उनकी लिस्ट बहुत बड़ी है, तो जो कोड स्ट्रक्चर्स वो लोग फॉलो करते हैं, जो प्रैक्टिसेस वहां पे फॉलो होती हैं, दैट इज वेरी ह्यूज. राइट. सो इन दैट सिनेरियो यू गेट टू वर्क ऑन दोज प्रोजेक्ट्स जिन पे बहुत एक्सपीरियंस लोग ऑलरेडी काम कर चुके हैं. वो तुम्हारा कोड बेस रिव्यू करेंगे, वो तुमको सिखाएंगे दैट हाउ यू शुड गो फॉरवर्ड विद इट, है ना. एंड लाइक देखो, इंडिविजुअली जब कोई प्रोजेक्ट बनता है ना तो उस पे उतना ज्यादा एक्सपोजर नहीं मिलता है, ना तो उस प्रोजेक्ट को और ना ही तुम किस तरीके से काम कर रहे हो उसको. राइट. तुम अकेले में प्रोजेक्ट बना लोगे कि हाँ मैंने दो दोस्तों को अपना प्रोजेक्ट दिखा दिया, दैट इज नॉट द वे टू गो फॉरवर्ड. राइट. द पॉइंट इज की जब तक तुम कुछ ऐसा काम नहीं करोगे जो कि बाकी लोग देखेंगे, ऐसे लोग जो ऑलरेडी उस इवेंट में काम कर चुके हैं, जो ऑलरेडी 50 बार फेल हो चुके हैं एंड देन 51 टाइम उनको पता चला था कि अच्छा इस चीज को ऐसे किया जाता है. ओके, तो वो लोग जब तक किसी चीज पे कमेंट नहीं करेंगे जो काम तुम कर रहे हो, उस तब तक तुम्हें पता नहीं चलेगा, क्योंकि इंडस्ट्री बहुत ज्यादा रैपिडली ग्रो होती है. पीएचपी पे लोग, एक टाइम था जब सिर्फ पीएचपी पे लोग काम करते थे और अब पीएचपी पे बहुत कम लोग काम करते हैं. सो एवरी डे द इंडस्ट्री इज चेंजिंग and what you need to do is you need to be in the sync with all the people. So open source is the greatest opportunity for that. Like अगर मैं बोलूं कि मैं गूगल में काम कर रहा हूं तो गूगल में काम करने के लिए मुझे वो हायरिंग प्रोसेस कंप्लीट करके गूगल तक जाना पड़ेगा. That is very difficult. To work in these biggest of the organizations, getting hired in these biggest of the organizations is really difficult. But when you talk about open source, all you need to do now is have skills. अगर तुम में वो ड्राइव है that you can go, you can pick up some issues, you can learn the skill set and you can contribute, then there's nobody stopping you. So that is the biggest advantage of open source. But again, हम सब humans हैं, so we all need the incentives, right? थोड़े बहुत incentives की भी बात होती है. So let's talk about the opportunities that we have in open source. Can we go to the next slide? Okay. So the biggest opportunity that you all know when it comes to open source is Google Summer of Code. Google Summer of Code हर साल होता है. It's backed by Google and it is the biggest open source competition in the world. सो डेफिनेटली ये एक इवेंट है जिसपे तुम पार्टिसिपेट कर सकते हो। गूगल समर ऑफ कोड की जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस होती हैं वो बहुत बड़ी बड़ी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस है, जैसे कि अपाचे, फॉसेशिया, ऐसी कुछ बहुत बड़ी ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं जिनपे बहुत बड़े बड़े लोग काम करते हैं, ऐसे लोग जो इंडस्ट्री में बहुत टाइम से हैं। तो अगर तुमको उनके साथ काम करने को मिल रहा है तो दैट्स अ वेरी big advantage. Then when we talk about outreachy is a similar event as compared to Google Summer of Code. Then we have genome internships and various other opportunities. So opportunities का कोई lack नहीं है. There are a lot of events, there are a lot of scholarship, there are a lot of companies who look into the profile, and when if you have open source in your profile, they are very much impressed by it. राइट, लाइक गोजेक है एक कंपनी, उड़ान है, ऐसी बहुत कंपनीज हैं। इफ यू नो, अभी ट्विटर पे एक ट्रेंड स्टार्ट हुआ था, उसमें क्या हुआ था कि पीपल वर बेसिकली गोइंग अगेंस्ट द व्हाइट बोर्ड हायरिंग कल्चर। ओके, सो वी आर नॉट डिस्कसिंग अबाउट व्हाट काइंड ऑफ हायरिंग प्रोसेस इज गुड, but the point is ki you can look into all those companies who don't follow this typical DSLGO process, and they actually give a lot of weightage to your open source contributions, because like एक logical बात है कि when I'm hiring someone and if I know that this guy has worked very well in an open source community, then I know that this guy has the experience to work with biggest of the code bases and with the some of the best of the minds from the industry. राइट, अगर तुम ओपन सोर्स की किसी बड़ी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के किसी प्रोजेक्ट में पीआर लगाते हो, विल इंट्रोड्यूस की पीआर क्या होता है, सो वो डायरेक्टली कोड मर्ज नहीं हो जाता। ऐसा नहीं होता कि तुमने फाइल खोली, तुमने कुछ भी एडिट कर दिया, दिस डजंट हैपन एट ऑल। ठीक है, तुम्हारा कोड प्रॉपर रिव्यू होता है, उस पर तुमको बताया जाता है तुम कहां पे इंप्रूव कर सकते हो, और हर उस पॉइंट पे ये चीज रहती है कि तुम प्रॉपरली इंप्रूव करते हो, और जब तक वो कोड क्वालिटी उस लेवल की नहीं पहुंचती है तुम वहां पे नहीं जा पाते हो। राइट, तुम्हारा कोड मर्ज नहीं होता है। सो द पर्सन हु इज हायरिंग यू knows कि ठीक है तुमने इस लेवल पे काम किया है and you have that experience and confidence. So open source is always a very big opportunity. One more thing that I would like to talk about here is that if I'm telling you that there are open source opportunities, that doesn't mean that you should directly jump into open source. Like when we talk about DSLGO versus this development and this open source, right? So ऐसा नहीं है कि you are not good at DSLGO, so you will do open source. नहीं. If you don't have the passion to start working in open source, start working on some of the projects, because there is a drive when you are working in open source. When your code gets merged now, तो वो अचानक से इंसेंटिव नहीं मिलता। यू हैव टू कीप वर्किंग एंड यू हैव टू सी दैट द कोड यू आर राइटिंग इज इम्पैक्टिंग मिलियंस ऑफ पीपल, क्योंकि जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है वो बहुत बड़े बड़े स्केल्स पे वर्क करती हैं। सो इट्स नॉट लाइक कि तुम्हें क्रिकेट नहीं आता, तुम पहली बॉल पे आउट हो जाते हो तो तुम फुटबॉल खेलोगे और लायनल मेसी बनोगे, ऐसे नहीं वर्क करती हैं चीजें। चीजें वर्क तब करेंगी व्हेन यू हैव दैट पैशन टू वर्क इन ओपन सोर्स, व्हेन यू हैव दैट ड्राइव कि भाई मैं तो एंड्रॉइड में कुछ बहुत ही भयंकर कर दूंगा इस बार इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के साथ जाके, एंड एट दैट केस यू शुड लुक इनटू द अपॉर्चुनिटीज। वरना फिर जो रैट रेस है यहाँ पे भी उसको रैट रेस बनाने का कोई सेंस नहीं बनता है, क्योंकि बहुत बार होता है कि ऐसे इवेंट्स जो बहुत ज्यादा इंसेंटिव बेस्ड होते हैं वो एक रैट रेस में कन्वर्ट हो जाते हैं, पर ये चीज यहाँ पे नहीं होती है बिकॉज वो डायरेक्ट इंसेंटिव्स नहीं है। यू हैव टू कीप वर्किंग, यू हैव टू कीप वर्किंग हार्ड, एंड देन कुछ होता है आगे। सो दीज आर द अपॉर्चुनिटीज इन ओपन सोर्स। नाउ वी विल मूव फॉरवर्ड। Before talking about Hacktoberfest, I would like to love to take up some of the questions. So if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat. Before talking about Hacktoberfest, I would like to. Any questions except for the proposals? We'll deal with the proposals later on. The first question is, sir, open source में लड़कियां आती है क्या? That is not the focus for this event. Sir, how to enroll for GitHub Campus Expert? So, okay, this is one question that we should address right now. So, GitHub Campus Expert is basically a community which in which you can become the representative of your college for GitHub, and you'll be responsible for organizing a lot of events, right? So, the process for that is quite simple. You go to their website and you apply by giving that why do you want to become an GitHub Campus Expert, And then if you get selected, you will be asked to do a training of 7 modules. And if your training is very good, the training is basically based on what you are doing, like how would you contribute to the community, etc. And if your content is good, then yeah, you will be getting the opportunity to become a campus expert. Sir, which languages should one learn to step into fast? So, okay, this is the biggest question that we encounter when we talk about open source, right? That कौन सी language सीखना चाहिए? So there is no specific foundation on the language. Like ऐसा नहीं होता है कि open source is only written in Java and open source is only written in Python या C++. It is not like that. Whatever your skill set is, like I explained in that house example, if you know how to fix electricity, you can go and fix electricity in any of the project. अब वो घर कैसे भी बनाया है, that doesn't matter. If you know the structure of the house and you know how to figure out the electrical components in that house, then you can go and contribute into that, right? So the language is not a big issue when we talk about open source. Sir, which is your favorite language, Java or Kotlin? Both, I'll say. Okay, I think we should move forward to the next section of the presentation. Now we will be talking about Hacktoberfest, right? So Hacktoberfest is basically a 1 month long open source event. Okay, and the basic motivation behind this event is to give an opportunity to some of the budding developers to start contributing on some of the biggest of the projects. So whatever we discussed till now, हमने जो भी अभी तक बात करी कि तुम contribute कर सकते हो and everything, that is basically Hacktoberfest. And we say that October is a month of open source. So for that we have this event. And where is this event hosted? The event is online. It's over the cloud. So basically what is happening here is there are a lot of GitHub repositories right now. The timeline is 1st October to 31st of October. And there are a lot of repositories with the tag of Hacktoberfest. Okay. So if you go and contribute into some of those issues which are tagged as Hacktoberfest, then those publish a PR, then those PR would be counted for you. And the incentive which is said in Hacktoberfest is that if you get your 4 PRs merged successfully, then in that case you will be getting a T-shirt from Hacktoberfest, right? So this is the whole concept of the event. There are very huge organizations that are participating in this. So this is an amazing opportunity for you to learn and contribute as much as. Okay. Now the point is how are you going to contribute to Hacktoberfest, right? So we have a section after Hacktoberfest in which we'll be explaining how do you open the pull request, how do you open the issues on GitHub, right? So we'll be telling you, but the biggest point when we talk about Hacktoberfest is to start the contributions. Like initially कई लोग होता है कि डर जाते हैं and they don't know how to start. And the point is कि बहुत बड़े बड़े issues solve करने की requirement नहीं है. Like if you start with some of the basic issues also, that is also very good if you are a beginner. So according to your skill set, you can go forward and contribute in Hacktoberfest. Now, the next section. Okay, so I already talked about these incentives. So the first incentive is Hacktoberfest T-shirt. You will be getting a T-shirt, and then they have introduced something this year, which is basically trade a tree for a tea. So in that case, you can donate and you can plant a tree. But here I would like to talk about something. So अगर तुम tech community में हो इस समय, and if you are following something except for the memes on online platforms, then you must know that Hacktoberfest एक level पे इस समय mock हो रहा है. It's getting mocked because the kind of contributions that people are doing just for getting that T-shirt is like very low. They are working on grammatical errors and then they are working on some of the full stops. So the point is, यार grammatical mistake ठीक करने तो नहीं आए थे ना कॉलेज तो इसलिए आए थे कि कुछ टेक्निकल सीखेंगे, कुछ अच्छा काम करेंगे. सो इफ यू आर गेटिंग दिस काइंड ऑफ प्लेटफॉर्म वेयर यू कैन वर्क with some of the best projects that are there in the open source community, then उसको एक टी शर्ट के लिए ट्रेड करने का कोई सेंस नहीं बनता है, राइट? तो लाइक यहाँ पे स्लाइड में भी मेंशन्ड है कि द इंसेंटिव इज टी शर्ट, उनकी वेबसाइट पे भी मेंशन्ड है दैट द इंसेंटिव इज टी शर्ट, बट पर्सनली आई थिंक the t-shirt is not the biggest incentive in this event, right? The biggest incentive is what you will be learning from those four PRs. And it's not just about the 4 PRs. Even if you make just a single PR which has the quality, which has the content that you want when you are talking about growing as a developer, So in that case you have to work on that. T-shirt का point नहीं है, point ये है कि वो 4 PR से तुम जो चीजें सीखोगे, GitHub के साथ जो चीजें सीखोगे. मेरा personal experience है, when I started in Girl Script Summer of Code, so my half event was wasted because I didn't know how to make the PRs and how to open the issues, and I was confused with GitHub only. So that doesn't make any sense. So if you are getting the opportunity to learn something, in that case you should go forward with it, right? And basically directly contribute करना start नहीं करना है tags देख के. You have to register first. वहां पे उनका proper profile dashboard होगा जहां पे तुमको दिखेगा कि कौन कौन सी PRs तुम्हारी खुली हुई हैं and कौन कौन से tags पे तुम contribute कर सकते हो. So for that you can go and contribute, right? And now we'll talk about Geektoberfest. This is the event which is being introduced by Geek Heaven this year for you guys. And yeah, again, an open source event, but I think this is something that you should know about. And why are we introducing this event? Just to help you take the first step. Because suppose you are not able to find the repositories where you should contribute. So there are some of the repositories which are being set up by Geek Heaven, and those will be beginner friendly repositories on which you can start contributing, right? So there are, the timeline for the event is 10th October to 31st October. You will be getting the more details from Geek Heaven shortly. And the goodies are again Hacktoberfest goodies, more prizes from Geek Heaven, and as I said, the opportunity to learn and contribute as much as you can, right? And then there are some rules for this event that the number of PRs which is allowed for an individual student is only 6. This is just so that we get a large number of participation, right? And after the 4 PRs, the student can contribute to any of the repositories outside the organization. That is not a foundation. It's not like char pe ruk jana. It's nothing like that. And the winner would be decided on the basis of quality and quantity of the PRs. So that's all regarding Hacktoberfest. And now we'll be moving to the next section in which I'll invite Deepak to give you a small demo about Git and GitHub. Over to you, Deepak.
Yeah, thank you, Shivansh. Hello, everyone. I'm Deepak Katre. I'm a third year student at IIITA Allahabad. I have been an open source enthusiast from very beginning, and as I started my college, I was new to coding and stuff. But then open code happened, and it showed me a path to open source. And as I had a very keen interest in knowing how softwares are made, how teams collaborate. So it gave me a zeal to work around Git and GitHub. So today, as we are talking about Hacktoberfest, so the basics to enter into the field of open source are Git and GitHub. So what is Git? Well, Git is a free and open source distributed version control system. So what is a version control system? Well, it's just it is controls your project directly. So it's nothing more than like you have all of the history, just like in Google Docs and Slides, you have your history of the documents that you have made. So it's just like keeping a history of whatever changes you have made to your projects. So what is GitHub? Well, GitHub is, as the name suggests, it is a hub of GitHub repositories, and it is a web hosting service. It was like it was it is very popular among the students right now, as it is much easier than the command line interface to use that is used with the old age Git that has been in the local content version management system. So there are a few terms that we need to take into control. What is repository? So repository is nothing but your project that is hosted on the web. All of the files that you have in your project are combined into a single project repository, and they are stored on the web for as your project repository. All the geeks around here call the repository as a repo. So it's a short version of repository. Next is a branch. So like you can see this is how the Git and GitHub in an abstract way we can see that uh, how the workflow is with Git and GitHub. So Git works on your local computers, whereas GitHub is a web-hosted service that tracks your project among all of your users that are your contributors that are contributing in the project. So what is a branch and what is a commit? So there are like whenever there is a project, many people work on a single project. So there needs to be like a division of the work so that no two users collide while working on the project. So they create different branches for the project and work on their own branches. And when they have done their changes, so they make the commit. Sorry, there's some technical glitch, I guess. Sorry, guys.
Okay, so there are some issues. There are some internet issues with Deepak, and I'll be continuing with I'll be continuing with this section again. Okay. So when we talk about branch, that the written definition is that you diverge from the main line of development and continue to do work without missing your main with that main line. Okay. So let's take a very basic example. Ki I'm working on a particular segment, and there are some other people also working on that segment. Suppose मैं एक Android app बना रहा हूँ and I'm working on the main screen. Okay. So suppose I'm working on the Android's main screen. Now, suppose you want to work on settings. Okay. So you don't want your work to get messed up with someone else's work. And suppose even you are working on settings and then you are working on, let's say, the login and logout feature. Okay. So in one branch, you will be doing the settings screen. And in second branch, you will be doing your login and logout section. And then we'll be combining them together in the main branch. So जो basic development cycle होता है किसी भी उसका किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट का वो ऐसा रहता है कि देयर इज वन मेन ब्रांच देन देयर इज वन डेवलपमेंट ब्रांच एंड देन देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ ब्रांच इन व्हिच सम ऑफ द इंडिविजुअल डेवलपर्स आर वर्किंग ओके सो मेन ब्रांच पे पूरा कोड वो रहता है जो कि वेरीफाइड है डेवलपमेंट पे आगे का काम चल रहा होता है एंड बाकी की जो ब्रांचेस है उस पे लोग अपना काम करवा के पीआर लगाते रहते हैं okay so in this way pull request in this way branch works now the next section yeah now we talk about push and pull. So push is basically adding the local changes made in a project to the repository on a remote server. Okay, so you are working on your laptop. पूरा जो कि development है वो remote पे नहीं होता है. You have to clone the project locally and do your work. And then what's important is to push that changes because that those changes are on your system, right? तुमने अपने system पे changes किए and now you want to show the world कि भाई ये changes हो चुके हैं and now let's start contributing ahead. Okay, so what you will do is you will push your changes to the remote repository, right? And then similar to that we have pull for downloading commits from a repository hosted on a remote server. So like someone else has done some work, suppose तुम again setting screen पे काम कर रहे थे कोई और मेन स्क्रीन पे काम कर रहा था तो उसने लोकली वो मेन स्क्रीन का काम किया एंड रिमोट सर्वर पे पुश कर दिया ओके सो इन दैट केस यू विल बी पुलिंग दोस चेंजेस एंड देन यू विल बी वर्किंग ऑन दैट so these two are the options to sync your local repositories with the repositories on the cloud. So these are the basic terminologies when we talk about Git and GitHub. Yeah, so there's a bug tracker in GitHub. You can go there and look into all of the bugs according to their tags and whatever are your requirements, and you can start solving the bugs. Right. Next section. Yeah. Now we talk about pull requests. So whenever we talk about open source and whenever we talk about GitHub, one thing that always pops up is pull request. So what exactly is pull request? So let's understand that in a very basic terminology. So suppose there were 50 people who are working on something, right? and those 50 people are the maintainers of the project. Let's assume now you go there, and what you do is you find an issue and you want to work on that issue, right? So basically, when you do, you will have to fork the project. You will have to create your own copy of the project. This is what forking is. You create your own copy of the project, and then you'll work on that repository and you will push your changes. So all those changes right now are inside your own copy. Okay, those changes are not inside the code base of the original repository. So what you need to do is you need to compare the changes that you have made with the original repository, and then you need to push those changes. Okay, and whenever you are done with the changes, you will publish a pull request, and all those 50 maintainers, whoever has the time, will come and review that pull request. And once he reviews that pull request, he will tell you that, okay, you need to fix something, you need to improve your code quality, or this feature is not working, and whatever are the issues in that. And in that case, you will have to reiterate over your changes. You will have to work again, and then you will be committing again inside that pull request, and then your pull request will finally get merged. So pull request basically is your method in which you compare the changes that you have done with the original code base, and then you ask the maintainers, okay, now is the time to merge my code, right? So this is the pull request. Next section. Yeah. So in the field of development, I think Git and GitHub are the biggest tools that you should learn. As I said, there are a lot of examples where I've seen developers struggling only because they don't know how to use Git and GitHub, right? So whenever you are going inside a company, or whenever you are working with some of the biggest organizations, then in that case, you need to learn how GitHub works and how you should work on GitHub, how you should push your code, etc. Okay, so like initially it seems very tough. शुरू में लगता है कि ये क्या ही है, pull request, fork, merge, issues. It's very confusing, right? But once you start working on that, then it's very easy and a very useful tool. Like there are a lot of instances when project delete हो जाता है and you have to go to GitHub and see what exactly were your changes. Like अगर तुमने कभी काम किया हो, तो अगर तुमने मैनुअल वर्जन कंट्रोल कभी बनाया हो, so what you do is you create the folder and name it as 1.0, 2.0, 3.0. So GitHub is providing all those opportunities for you in the field of development. Again, when we talk about specifically about GitHub, Git is basically a version control system. But when we talk about GitHub, GitHub also supports the college communities, the developer communities. And we have a program called GitHub Campus Expert. And specifically talking about IIITA Allahabad, we have 3 GitHub Campus Experts right now. One of them is Anupam Dagar, second is me, Shivansh Tiwari, and third is Ananya Agarwal. So GitHub provides, there is a student pack also which GitHub provides. So for all the student developers out there, GitHub is giving you a lot of opportunities. So you should definitely go and start learning about GitHub as well. Okay, next section. Again, we'll take up some of the questions. So because we talked about Git and GitHub, and I'm sure there are a lot of questions which you have in your mind when we talk about Git and GitHub again. So I'll be happy to take up some of the questions in chat. Any questions regarding Git and GitHub? We'll wait for 5 minutes for the questions and then we'll move forward. Which is better, GitHub Bash or GitHub Desktop? I'll say it's not the point about which is better. It's the point about what is working out for you. If you are in Windows, you can obviously use Git Bash, but I myself feel comfortable while working on the terminal. So I don't think it's the point of which is better. Everything is attaining the same thing. Every tool is providing you the opportunities to work with GitHub and Git. So it's not exactly about what exactly is better, right? Sir, suppose we are the maintainers of the repo, then how do we manage changes from the several PRs? So, okay, how I understand this question is, what you are asking is, suppose you are the maintainer and then there are a lot of PRs, right? So what you have to do, what are the practices which are followed when we talk about some of the best open source projects, is that when an issue is opened up, so that issue is regarding one specific fix, right? So suppose there is a fix in the project or there is some specific feature in the project, uske liye ek issue khulta hai, right? उस इशू पे सारा डिस्कशन होता है कि इस इशू को कैसे फिक्स करना है, कौन इस इशू पे फिक्स करेगा, एक्चुअल में काम करना भी है इस पे या नहीं करना है, क्या इसके इंसेंटिव्स होंगे, क्या इसका ओवरऑल इम्पैक्ट होगा पूरे प्रोडक्ट पे। एंड देन अकॉर्डिंग टू दैट किसी एक इंसान को वो इशू क्लेम, कोई एक इंसान उस इशू को क्लेम करता है, राइट। सो सपोज इफ यू आर कंट्रीब्यूटिंग टू द ओपन सोर्स, व्हाट यू विल डू इज यू विल आस्क कि कैन आई वर्क ऑन दिस इशू, एंड यू विल नीड टू गेट अ वैलिडेशन फ्रॉम द मेंटेनर्स. Now you will publish a pull request for a specific issue. So basically, if you are following all the best practices, then there is generally one pull request for one fix, right? So it's not very difficult to actually manage them. All you need to do is see that the pull request is working properly with your project. It's not breaking something. It's following the code quality, is following the code structure, and then you just need to merge it. There is no very big issue in that again. So if someone else push changes before I do, then what will happen? So now the scenario is, suppose the someone else that you are talking about, there are two scenarios. Ki pehla ki wo jo someone else hai, that is the contributor that has the access to actually edit the code base, and the second is some other third party contributor, right? So if he or she is some other third party contributor, then again they will be pushing a pull request, right? And if that someone else is the contributor or some person who has the access to edit the code base, then in that case what will happen is the thing called git conflict, right? So there will be a conflict. What conflict is? Okay, let's understand about conflict in a very basic terms. So suppose I have a file in which I have written 4 characters A, B, C, D in different lines, right? So in line number 1 I have A, then B, then C, then D. Okay. Now what you're doing is somebody tells you that, okay, do one thing, write E on the 5th line. Okay. So you are not the contributor of the project. So what you do is you fork the project, you write E, and you create a pull request. Seems easy. But what happens is suddenly suppose the demands change, and now you have to actually write F on the 5th line. Okay. So suppose the contributor, he comes to the code base and उसने F लिख के 5th line पे push कर दिया. Okay. अब जब push कर दिया, and when when GitHub is comparing your pull request with the actual code base, so वहां पे एक conflict आ गया. Because तुम क्या बोल रहे हो कि 5th line में मैं E डालूंगा, और actual में उस code base पे F आ चुका है, right? So in that case, there's the merge conflict, and then what you need to do is you need to resolve that conflict. So basically, all the developers, what they'll have to do is they'll have to come together, and there's then the process of calling of resolving the conflict. So you'll have to decide which line of code is actually going inside that particular section, and then once the merge conflicts are resolved, then in that case you can get your PRs. So ये होता है. This is the biggest issue when we talk about open source. Merge conflicts आते हैं, and you'll get to learn a lot about merge conflicts in the future. Do we have any more questions? Okay, so we have another question. Can you please explain the concept of Git rebasing? Okay, Git rebasing is one of the most complex topics when we talk about Git and GitHub. Okay, so basically what rebasing is it's a kind of a GitHub utility in which you integrate the changes from one branch to another, right? So suppose तुम्हारा एक branch है जिसपे तुम एक specific काम कर रहे हो. Let's say कि तुमने एक development का branch बनाया and उस पे you are working on some particular feature. Okay, so now what you need to do is you need to integrate those changes into your master branch, जो कि main एक flagship branch है जहां पे सारे contributors आके काम करेंगे. So in that scenario you need to use git rebase. Okay, so like इसको अगर एक simple terms में explain करें, again basically it's the process of moving and combining a sequence of commits. So like suppose तुमने एक नया branch बनाया, उस पे तुमने कुछ particular commits करे, right? And अब वो जो commits है वो तुम्हारे master branch पे नहीं है. जो एक फ्लो होता है कमिट्स का, बेसिकली गिटहब कैसे ऑपरेट करता है कि तुम्हारे कमिट्स एक पर्टिकुलर ब्रांच पे जो बनते जाएंगे, सो जो तुम्हारा एक अलग ब्रांच बन रहा है उस पे वो कमिट्स मास्टर पे नहीं है, राइट? सो व्हाट व्हेन यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट सिंकिंग, यू नीड टू सिंक ऑल ऑफ दोस कमिट्स इनटू योर मास्टर ब्रांच, राइट? सो फॉर दैट वी फॉलो द प्रोसेस ऑफ गिट रिलीज. Sir, when and how did you start with open source? So basically, I started with open source at the end of my first year. So when I came back home and I got to learn about an event called GulfScript Summer of Code. So basically, it was an open source event being conducted by GulfScript, and I wanted to learn a bit about Android development. So for that, I started working on GulfScript. As I said, the biggest issue initially was to learn about Git and GitHub, how to actually create the issues, how to send the pull requests, etc. But yeah, so my start was with that event. Okay, now we'll be moving to the next section in which we'll be actually telling you a bit about an organization which we are setting up. DSC IIITA Allahabad is setting up an organization called Elevate Labs, and we'll be giving you a small demo of how to do things in GitHub, and then we'll be telling you a bit more about Incubate Labs. So over to Deepak again.
Yeah. So thank you, Shivansh. Sorry for that previous one. So DSC IIITA Allahabad has started a student-led organization under its umbrella known as Elevate Labs. It is by the students and for the community. There we would incubate the projects for the which work for the betterment of the community, which solve some real life community problems that people around us face. There, of course, this is an open source organization, so anybody is welcome to this organization, to be a part of this organization, where they can show their skills, development skills, and contribute to the projects. Also, if anybody has some great solutions of community challenges, then they can also apply for their project for incubation under Elevate Labs. So you guys can check out the repositories of Elevate Labs for more information and to keep an eye on upcoming issues and help us solve them. Now we will move to the demo. Just a second, guys. Yeah. So
Okay, so when we talk about what is Elevate Labs, so Elevate Labs is a student-led organization that we have created, and what we are going to do inside this organization is that हम कुछ ऐसे projects पे काम करेंगे जो कि कुछ community problems को solve करेगा, right? So the main goal of this organization is first to make you learn that how do you contribute, right? कैसे contribute करना होता है projects में आके, कैसे इश्यूज खोलने होते हैं, कैसे पुल रिक्वेस्ट लगाने होते हैं. एंड देन व्हेन वी हैव दैट बेस रेडी, जहां पे जो डेवलपर्स हैं दे नो कि कैसे काम करना है एंड कैसे कंट्रीब्यूट करना है, देन द बिगेस्ट मोटिवेशन फॉर दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इज टू क्रिएट सम ऑफ द प्रोडक्ट्स दैट आर सॉल्विंग द कम्युनिटी प्रॉब्लम. ओके, सो डीएससी का एक जो बिगेस्ट मोटिवेशन है वो ये है कि कुछ कम्युनिटी प्रॉब्लम्स को हमको सॉल्व करना है, राइट. सो हम ट्राई करेंगे कि इस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के अंदर हम कुछ ऐसे प्रोजेक्ट्स बिल्ड करें जो इस गोल को अटेन करने में हेल्प करें. एंड वी आर वेलकमिंग एवरीबडी टू कम एंड कंट्रीब्यूट टू ऑल द प्रोजेक्ट्स दैट वी आर फीचरिंग इनसाइड दिस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन, right? So irrespective of if you are inside the organization or not, you can come and you can start contributing for the same, right? So first we'll go with the demo now. Okay, so what we'll be doing is we'll be showing you how to actually open an issue, and then how to claim the issue, and then create a pull request for the same. Okay, so what you can see on your screen is right now an issue. The issue is add your details in the data.json file, right? So this is the issue which is opened by the maintainers of the repository. And जब तुम इस link पे जाओगे and when you look into the issues, you will get to know कि ये एक issue है जिसपे काम करना चाह रहे हैं maintainers, right? On the right of your screen, you can see labels. There are some labels called as everyone, good first issue, etc. So from those labels, you get to know कि किस type का ये issue है and किस type के issue पे हमको काम करना है, right? So suppose if you see the label called good first issue, then you know that कि basically एक बहुत ही basic issue है ये and उसको तुम solve कर सकते हो, right? Then Hacktoberfest की जब हमने initially बात करी थी, तो Hacktoberfest is big, so there will be tags called Hacktoberfest on those issues, and then you will know कि okay यहाँ पे जब हम काम करेंगे, so I'll be getting that Hacktoberfest incentive, right? Now you see Deepak writing a comment on the comment section that I want to contribute on this project, right? So this is the thing that you necessarily have to do when you are working on a project which is owned by someone else. You can't just go and start working on the project. I think that's logical to everybody, right? सो तुम्हें क्या करना होगा, यू विल गो एंड यू विल रिक्वेस्ट द कंट्रीब्यूटर्स कि मेरे को इस इशू पे काम करना है, कैन आई गो फॉरवर्ड विद इट, राइट? सो फॉर एग्जांपल अभी दीपक ने वो कमेंट किया एंड ही विल पब्लिश द कमेंट कि आई वांट टू वर्क ऑन दिस इशू, and once he gets the approval from the maintainers of the project that okay yes you should go forward with it, the अप्रूवल इज नॉट वेरी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड प्रोसेस. लाइक बहुत सारा डिस्कशन होता है उस पर कि तुम एग्जैक्टली कैसे उसको इंप्लीमेंट करोगे, क्या वो इशू इंप्लीमेंट करने लायक है या नहीं. एंड आफ्टर दैट फाइनली वो जब अप्रूवल मिलेगा देन ओनली यू कैन स्टार्ट वर्किंग ऑन दैट, राइट? सो विल मूव अहेड नाउ. Now we'll show how to fork the projects, right? So forking, again, let's explain what fork is. Suppose there's an organization of Elevate Lab, and then there's the project called Elevate Lab website, right? So अब ये जो project है, इस पे direct commit access तुम्हारे पास नहीं है. I think this is very obvious. जिन लोगों के पास वो rights हैं वहां पे commit करने के या वहां पर changes करने के, only they can contribute, right? So if you want to contribute, you will have to fork the project. What is fork? Okay, so let's ignore about this word, and basically होगा क्या कि you will create a copy of your own. So the complete project would be shifted to your own profile, right? So for example, now Deepak will forward the project, and what's going to happen is this complete code base would be shifted under the profile of Deepak, and you will be getting they will be written that this project is forked from this particular repository. So ऐसा नहीं है कि you are copying someone else's work. What you are doing is you are creating a copy for yourself, then you are pushing your changes in that repository, and then you are comparing your changes with the original repository, right? So जब तुम fork करते हो तो GitHub तुमको एक option provide करता है कि जब भी तुम यहाँ पे कुछ changes करोगे, you can compare those changes directly with any of the branches from your parent repository as well as your main repository, right? So ये process होता है forking का, and this is the first project when you start about contributing to a project. यहाँ पे I would like to say one thing. Forking is the first step, but the biggest step when you start contributing is the basic setup. राइट. इतने बड़े बड़े कोड बेसेस होते हैं, एंड ऑल दीज कोड बेसेस, द बिगेस्ट इश्यू फॉर दैट इज यू हैव टू सेटअप दैट प्रोजेक्ट. ओके, सो तुम फोर्क करने के बाद उसको क्लोन करोगे अपने सिस्टम पे, एंड क्लोन करने के बाद जैसे ही तुमने सेटअप कर लिया, क्योंकि सेटअप पे बहुत सारे डिपेंडेंसीज इश्यू आते हैं, सेटअप पे कई बार ऐसा होता है कि तुम्हारे में वो तुम्हारे सिस्टम में वो चीजें नहीं है जो उनको एक्चुअल में रिक्वायर्ड है, राइट. सो उस सिनेरियो में वंस यू हैव डन द सेटअप, यू हैव ऑलरेडी कंप्लीटेड 50% ऑफ द टास्क. 90% लोग जिनको मैं जानता हूं जो ओपन सोर्स स्टार्ट करके छोड़ते हैं, वो सेटअप की ही वजह से छोड़ते हैं, एंड दिस अप्लाई स्पेसिफिकली टू जीसॉक. जीसॉक पे ये बहुत प्रिडोमिनेटली होता है, लोग सेटअप नहीं करते हैं. सो वंस यू हैव कंप्लीटेड योर सेटअप इज वर्किंग कंप्लीटली, then in that case you can go forward and start contributing, right. Now we'll look into whether the contributors have approved that Deepak can work on this project or not, right. So now Deepak will be opening that issue. Just a second, we'll be finding that issue and we'll be showing you that the comment has been added. Okay, you can see here that comment has been added by the maintainer of the project, that Deepak can go forward and start working in this project, right. And he has got the approval, and now he has the ability to start working in this project. Now his changes would be accepted by the community because he has the approval. And we saw that we have already forked the project, so now Deepak will be doing some changes in the file and showing you how to create a pull request. So this is Deepak's copy of the project, and like again, for क्यों किया था? Because in this repository he can directly push the changes, right? So he'll be doing his changes on this repository, and then he will be comparing his changes with the original repository. This is the basic flow when we talk about contributing and making the PRs. So this is the JSON file, and according to the issue, we have to add something in this JSON file, right? So, like, acha, right now, what Deepak is doing is he is adding those changes from GitHub itself, right? But mainly होता क्या है कि जब ये डेवलपमेंट का प्रोसेस चल रहा होता है, then after the fork you have to clone the project. Okay, so clone is basically from the remote repository you are bringing down all your changes into your local system, right? तो बेसिकली जो मेन काम होता है वो लोकल पे होता है, बिकॉज ऑफ कोर्स डेवलपमेंट का प्रोसेस इजी होता है, यू गेट ऑल द टूल्स, यू गेट ऑल द आईडीज एंड एवरीथिंग. सो जनरली जो ये पूरा प्रोसेस करना चाहिए वो लोकल सिस्टम पे करना चाहिए, एंड देन गिट का टर्मिनल्स यूज करके या फिर जो भी टूल्स तुम यूज कर रहे हो गिटहब के लिए उसको यूज करके प्रोसेस होता है. बट जस्ट फॉर सिंप्लिसिटी, बिकॉज द मोटिवेशन राइट नाउ इज टू ओपन अ पीआर एंड नॉट टू गो इनटू द बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस, we'll be opening a PR from the from GitHub only. Okay, so you can see that he has made those changes. He has added his name with his image URL and everything into the file. So this is the basic flow. Now you can take this analogy to any of the projects. Suppose एक Java project है, and suppose getter setter लगाना भूल गया उनका contributor. So what you need to do is you need to open that file either locally or on GitHub. Then you need to add the code which is required to fix that issue, and then you need to go forward, right? So यहाँ पे this is commit. So what commit is, you have done some changes and then you push a commit with a commit description कि ये काम मैंने ये commit कर रहा हूँ मैं, and then all those commits would be included inside your pull request, and then you can publish the pull request. So now Deepak will make a commit, and he's adding a commit message. Commit message is basically just a utility just to know कि इस particular changes के साथ क्या हो रहा है, otherwise it would be very difficult to keep track, right? And again, when you contribute on some of the biggest organizations, तो वहां पे commit messages के भी protocols होते हैं. You need to follow some of the guidelines while writing the commit messages. The commit messages should be meaningful. It can't be like पहला change या दूसरा change. It is not like that. What you are working, what exactly are you working upon? You have to write that only, right? So just now Deepak added his own profile into the commit, into the code base, and what he's writing is added myself as a contributor. So all these practices you need to follow when you are contributing, right? Now we'll be making the comment. Okay. So this commit is made. Cool. You have attained something, but the point again is this commit is on your repository, right? And you get to see a message that this branch is one commit ahead of Elevate Labs main branch. Okay, so what this shows is कि तुमने जो अपने रिपोजिटरी पे काम किया है वो एक कमिट आगे है ऑलरेडी, जो कि तुम्हारी पेरेंट रिपोजिटरी है उससे. ओके, सो अब क्या होगा, अब पुल रिक्वेस्ट बनेगा. पुल रिक्वेस्ट क्यों बनेगा? क्योंकि तुम कुछ कमिट्स आगे हो, you have done some changes, right? And you want to get your changes merged into the main repository. So on the right of your message you can see a tag called open a pull request, and once you click on that you will be getting the template to create a pull request. Now Deepak will create. Okay, the first step is it compares the changes and it tells you that whether it's going to be able to merge or not. Okay, so this message that it is able to merge is not reflecting कि हाँ merge होगी PR. नहीं, PR merge कब होगी? When your code base is, when your code is good, when your code is actually fixing the problem, and when your code is following all the standards. Okay, but this message is basically to reflect कि कोई भी merge conflict नहीं है, कोई भी ऐसा इशू नहीं है जिस वजह से GitHub उस कोड को merge नहीं कर पाएगा. Okay, there are two steps. एक है कि Git और GitHub उस कोड को merge करे, और दूसरा है कि मेंटेनर उस कोड को merge करे, right? So ये चीज टेक्निकल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से है. And once your code is actually doing the thing that the maintainers want, then तुम्हारा change merge होगा. Okay, so now I'll ask Deepak to create the pull request. Now when you are opening the pull request, you need to mention कि ये जो pull request है ये कौन से issue को fix कर रही है, right? So there's thing called fixes. So you write fixes and then you tag the issue. So the maintainers and whoever is reviewing the repository, whoever is reviewing the pull request, knows that कि कौन सा issue यहाँ पे fix हो रहा है. Right, and then you need to add some of the details कि कौन से टाइप का ये पुल रिक्वेस्ट है, बग फिक्स हो रहा है या फिर कोई फीचर ऐड हो रहा है. Then you need to add screenshots, then you need to add the description that what you are doing, etc. So basically this is just again a helper just to make sure that the reviewers know what you are trying to do here, how you are trying to do here, whether you have followed all the guidelines or not, and then your code will be reviewed, right? As you can see, there are a lot of checklists inside the pull request template. These templates are created by the maintainers. So ऐसा नहीं होता है कि same template होती है हर pull request में. It's not like that. There are projects जहाँ पे maintainers खुद अपनी template बनाते हैं अपने हिसाब से कि उनको क्या क्या checklist follow करवानी है. Suppose कोई एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जिनको कोड क्वालिटी पे कुछ एक्स्ट्रा चीजें काम करवानी है, कोड क्वालिटी पे ज्यादा फोकस करना है, या फिर उनको स्क्रीनशॉट्स नेसेसरीली चाहिए इफ यू आर वर्किंग ऑन एनी काइंड ऑफ कंपोनेंट जो कि विजुअल हो. So in that case, the template can be modified as well. So now Deepak will be filling the template and showing you how to open a pull request. Till the time Deepak is working on this, I would like to talk about one more thing. And the thing is, what you should do when you start contributing, right? So, abhi tak jitna samajh mein aaya, you need to go into the issues, you need to open the pull request, you need to do blah, 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 right? But one of the most important things that you need to do while contributing to a project is join their channels. Okay, hota kya hai ki if the organization is very big now, so they have some of the IRC channels, they have the channels where you can communicate with directly with the developers and all of the people who are working on that project. Okay, so first and the most important thing is to go and realize कि उनके motivations क्या हैं, वो अभी किस चीज पे काम कर रहे हैं, एंड देन यू शुड गो फॉरवर्ड. लाइक अचानक से जाके इशू खोल दोगे एंड पीआर लगा दोगे तो दे विल आल्सो नॉट अप्रिशिएट, एंड तुम्हें भी वो सेंस नहीं बनेगा, वो कोई इंसेंटिव नहीं होगा, कोई भी पीआर मर्ज नहीं होगा. तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल देयर आर आईआरसी चैनल्स, जनरली स्लैक पे भी वो चीज होती है, गिटर पे होती है, दे कम्युनिकेट, जैसे बहुत बड़े ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से जो स्लैक और गिटर पे कम्युनिकेट करते हैं. तो ज्वाइन देयर चैनल्स, बी हम्बल एंड आस्क देम कि मेरा ये टेक स्किल है और मैं इस चीज पे काम करता हूँ. सो अगर कोई भी प्रोजेक्ट है या फिर कोई भी इश्यूज है जो कि मेरे टेक स्टैक से मैच करता है, सो प्लीज टेल मी. या फिर अगर अगर तुम्हें कुछ बग दिख रहा है, सो अगेन बी हम्बल एंड टेल देम कि ये बग है आपके प्रोजेक्ट में एंड आई वुड लव टू सॉल्व दिस, right? So you need to do that as well. This is one of the most important parts while contributing to open source. Okay, now you can see the comparison. So on the screen, you will be able to see the comparisons which are there from your code as compared to the original code, and you will be able to understand कि exactly क्या-क्या changes हैं जो मेरी PR कर रहा है. All the red lines basically reflect जो code section delete हुआ है, and all the green lines basically reflect कि कौन सा section add हुआ है. Right? So these are the sections जहां से एक easy पड़ता है compare करना changes को, क्या changes है pull request में, because suppose बहुत ज्यादा लाइंस ऑफ कोड है तो पूरा कोड तो बार बार कोई पढ़ेगा नहीं. सो यू हैव दिस टैब वेयर यू कैन कम एंड सी ऑल द चेंजेस of a particular pull request. So as we can see, the pull request is open. We can see the number of commits in the pull request, we can see the number of files changed, and then we can see the number of comments. The comment is basically just to reflect कि क्या discussion हो रहा है उस pull request में, because generally एक जो pull request खुलती है तो उसमें बहुत सारे iterations होते हैं, वन गो में पूरा perfect code नहीं लिखा जाता है, तो उसपे सारे आइटरेशंस के बाद, पूरे डिस्कशंस के बाद, और वो डिस्कशन भी ओपन सोर्स है. लाइक जस्ट फॉर एन एग्जांपल, वी वर वर्किंग ऑन रूबी ऑन रेल्स एंड देयर वाज अ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट इन आवर माइंड्स कि कौन से स्पेसिफिक चीज को उठा के काम करना चाहिए रूबी ऑन रेल्स पे, राइट? सो व्हाट वी डिड इज वी वेंट टू द ओपन सोर्स रिपोजिटरी ऑफ रूबी ऑन रेल्स एंड वी स्टार्टेड रीडिंग द कमेंट्स ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर पुल रिक्वेस्ट. सो वो जो फीचर ऐड हुआ था वो एक इश्यू और एक पुल रिक्वेस्ट के साथ ऐड हुआ था, और हमारा जो कन्फ्लिक्ट था वो ये था कि हम इस पर्टिकुलर टूल को क्यों यूज करें एज कंपेयर टू एक दूसरा टूल. सो हमारे लिए बहुत हेल्पफुल था वो सारे कमेंट्स रीड करना, जिससे ये रियलाइज हो रहा है कि जो एक्चुअल मेंटेनर्स हैं उस रिपोजिटरी के, जो लोग उस पर काम कर रहे हैं और जो बंदा उसको क्वेश्चन कर रहा है कि ये चीज ऐसे होनी चाहिए, हमको उनके भी थॉट प्रोसेस पता चल रहा है उन कमेंट्स के साथ. सो ओपन सोर्स में एक ये भी है कि यू कैन रीड ऑल द डिस्कशंस आल्सो, राइट? एंड वी कैन सी द मेंटेनर हैज अप्रूव्ड द पुल रिक्वेस्ट. The pull request is approved, and once the pull request is approved, then you know that okay, your PR can be merged. Again, ये approval वाला जो process है, before this सारे iterations पे पूरे code base को check किया जाता है, code base को change किया, code base को जो भी changes करने हैं वो change किए जाते हैं, and again we can see the reviewer has approved the pull request, and now the pull request can get merged. या अगेन वन मोर थिंग वी सॉ कि डायरेक्ट अप्रूव होने के बाद पीआर मर्ज नहीं हुई, राइट? तो उसका क्या रीजन है? बिकॉज समटाइम्स देयर आर अ लॉट ऑफ मेंटेनर्स फॉर द प्रोजेक्ट, राइट? सो सपोज आई हैव 5 ऑफ द मेंटेनर्स इन अ पर्टिकुलर प्रोजेक्ट, सो वन ऑफ देम अप्रूव्स, बिकॉज सबका माइंडसेट अलग अलग होता है, सबके इवैल्यूएट करने का तरीका अलग अलग होता है. तो कुछ लोग उसको इवेल्युएट करेंगे, राइट, बट उसको अप्रूव कर देंगे, बट अप्रूवल डजंट नेसेसरली मीन कि अब उसको मर्ज करना है। अगर अप्रूव करने के बाद सपोज देयर इज अ सिनेरियो कि कोई मेंटेनर बोलता है कि इसको अप्रूव कर दो बट विद दीज चेंजेस, राइट, या फिर कोई दूसरे कॉन्ट्रीब्यूटर का वेट हो रहा है कि ये कोई दूसरे मेंटेनर का वेट हो रहा है, सॉरी, कि ये मेंटेनर भी आके एक बार अप्रूव कर दे, उसके बाद मर्ज होगा। सो अप्रूविंग डजंट मीन कि मर्ज हो रहा है, बट या अगर तुम्हारे किसी भी मेंटेनर ने अप्रूव कर दिया है, देन यू नो कि हाँ तुमने जो चेंजेस करे हैं वो अच्छे हैं, एंड आफ्टर सम ऑफ द माइनर ट्विक्स तुम्हारा पीआर मर्ज हो जाए। सो दिस इज द कंप्लीट प्रोसेस। So you can see the pull request is merged, and the pull request was just to add myself as a contributor. So we know this was the flow while creating a new pull request and while creating a new issue and then contributing, right? Okay, till that time, let's take some of the questions which are on the chat. One question is, so Git rebasing is done by managers of the repo? No. So suppose you have cloned the repository and you have created a new branch, okay, in your local system, and then you are working on that particular branch. So तुम locally भी repo locally भी उसको rebase कर सकते हो, but हाँ जहाँ पे तुम rebase कर रहे हो, you should have the access to edit the code base in that repository. So वही again जो हमारा process था कि you have to fork the repository, then you have to clone the repository, and the cloned repository is your own repository. वहां पे of course you can do the rebase. Any kind of code change you cannot do in any repository which has not provided you the access, right? अगर तुम्हारे पास उसमें edit करने का access नहीं है, then you can't do anything. Then the next question is, sir, what does squashing of the commits mean? How it seems to be ideal? Like ideally, we must put a commit for each and every change. This is a very good question. So the process of squashing of the commits is very simple. Like अगर किसी ने open source पे contribute किया हुआ है already, तो उनको पता होगा कि when you have opened a pull request and you have added a lot of commits for that particular pull request, then the maintainers will tell you कि do one thing, squash all the commits, and then we will be merging your PR. सो स्क्वॉशिंग इज बेसिकली जो भी तुमने इंडिविजुअल कमिट्स पे चेंजेस किए हैं उनको एक पर्टिकुलर कमिट में मर्ज करना, एक पर्टिकुलर कमिट में स्क्वॉश करना, एंड देन फिर उस पुल रिक्वेस्ट पे आगे प्रोसेस करना, राइट? सो ये प्रोसेस इंपॉर्टेंट क्यों है? Why is this process important? Is because the main motivation behind a pull request is basically the net effect of the change, right? Suppose if I'm talking about a particular feature, then a pull request cares about adding a feature X. Okay, it's not caring about कि मैंने ये काम किया, फिर मैंने ये काम किया, फिर मैंने ये काम किया. Basically, it's just a process where you keep a clean track of the history, right? जो यहाँ पे the point is कि for we must put a commit for each and every change. That is very true. But when we talk about a pull request is of course working on a particular change only, right? So the whole motivation behind the pull request is to work on a specific feature of the project. And in that, if you have added a lot of commits, then it basically goes against the keeping a clean commit history of the project. Any more questions? We'll be happy to take more questions on the chat. Okay, so we have one question, which is it unethical to fork a repository without the maintainer's permission? So not at all, because forking is basically like अगर कोई एक maintainer है, so open source का जो culture है that allows you to create your own copy, right? Initially when we started the discussion in this talk, what we said is open source is basically providing you the power to create your own copy, to make any kind of changes, to redistribute, and to add any feature that you like, right? So creating your own fork of a particular project is not at all unethical. It is the basic flow, right? You will not ask if the maintainer before cloning the project or before forking the project. Okay, so every time whenever like कोई भी repository हो, जितनी भी बड़ी हो, जितने भी maintainers हो उसमें, you always have that freedom to create your own copy. The F in FOSS again stands for the freedom of speech. You can do anything with your own copy, so it is not at all unethical, right? Okay, so again, we have a question. If I have made a pull request and after 10 to 30 seconds, another person makes a pull request on the same file, it shows a merge conflict then. Okay, so what to do in this case? First thing, it is the responsibility of the maintainers and it is the responsibility of the developers also to make sure that for a particular feature, बस एक ही पुल रिक्वेस्ट आ रही है, राइट? सो अगेन हमने जो प्रोसेस दिखाया कि एक इशू क्लेम होगा, उसके बाद एक पुल रिक्वेस्ट जाएगी. सो once the issue is claimed, so that person, the person who has allotted the issue is only working on the pull request, right? बट अगेन अगर कोई स्पेसिफिक पुल रिक्वेस्ट आती है और वो पुल रिक्वेस्ट मर्ज हो जाती है तुम्हारी पुल रिक्वेस्ट मर्ज होने से पहले, राइट? सो वो मर्ज कॉन्फ्लिक्ट आ गया है एंड देन यू विल हैव टू टॉक टू द कंट्रीब्यूटर्स कि जो चेंजेस हैं एक्चुअल में कौन से चेंजेस रखने हैं, कौन से चेंजेस हटाने हैं, एंड अकॉर्डिंग टू दैट यू विल हैव टू रिजॉल्व the merge conflicts. Okay, how do you resolve the merge conflicts? Basically you try to merge the code bases, and once you merge the code bases, git will tell you कि कहां पर conflict आया है. There will be a division कि ये changes हैं जो कि original code base में है, ये changes हैं जो merge करते टाइम दूसरे branch से आए हैं, and you need to resolve them now. So according to what exactly is needed in that situation, you will have to resolve the conflicts, and then the final changes would be pushed inside your PR, and then the PR can be merged, right? Again, when we talked about Elevate Lab, so Elevate Labs is also a part of Geektoberfest. So Elevate Labs में भी जो projects होंगे, they will be having a tag of Geektoberfest with their issues. So you can come and you can start contributing to the issues which are opened with the tag of Hacktoberfest in Elevate Lab also. So we are basically providing all the opportunities for anyone who wants to learn about open source, who wants to contribute and start your open source journey. So एक बहुत अच्छा platform है, I'll say, because you will be getting the guidance from your immediate mentors, you will be getting the guidance from your friends, and you will be getting the guidance from people who are already working on open source, right? So I think because lockdown hai and everybody is in their homes, so you have the opportunity to learn as much as they can, as you can. So Elevate Labs and then the Geektoberfest, which is being started by Geek Heaven. In both of these organizations, you can come and contribute as much as you can, right? And again, Elevate Labs is not limited to the duration of Hacktoberfest. The main motivation behind this organization is that we want to build some of the products which are helping the society and which are allowing our students to become better developers, right? So Hacktoberfest खत्म होने के बाद भी you have the complete freedom to come and explore your opportunities and your development skills under our projects. So you will be getting the projects over like various tech domains. We have already started with some of the projects which are based on web development and Android development, and we'll be trying to create some of the projects on machine learning as well. So if you have if you have the interest to work on these tech domains, definitely come and check out our repositories. If you have any more questions, then please post them on the chat. So again, you will be getting a feedback form on which you can give your honest feedback. Ki how was the talk and how are the issues which you can see in our organizations. And the main motivation behind this event is to make sure ki you get to learn something. Right? DSC is trying to make sure ki तो जितने भी नए स्टूडेंट्स हैं you get to learn, and not only learn, you get to reach that level of कोड क्वालिटी कि तुम अच्छे खासे ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस में जाके कंट्रीब्यूट कर सको जो कि कॉलेज के बाहर के हैं, या फिर जो एक तुम्हारे जो तुम्हारा एक सर्कल है उसके बाहर के प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं, तो उनकी जो बेस्ट प्रैक्टिसेस है इट्स इंपॉर्टेंट टू लर्न देम एज वेल. सो आई विल से कि एक बेसिक स्टार्ट यहां से करना इज द बेस्ट थिंग, एंड देन यू कैन गो अहेड. सो आई थिंक वी आर डन विद द सेशन. आई से अगर कोई जनरल क्वेश्चन भी है रिगार्डिंग कौन सी चीज में तुम्हें इंटरेस्ट आ रहा है या फिर कौन सी चीज में तुम फंस रहे हो, we'll be happy to take those questions as well. So if you have any question, please post them in the chat, not only regarding Git and GitHub and open source, regarding any of the technical domains that you want to ask something. Otherwise, we'll be wrapping up the session now. Also, we will have to see in the chat what do you want to see next. अगर कोई specific topic है जहां पे तुम फंस रहे हो, अगर कोई specific domain है जहां पे एक ज्यादा लोग फंस रहे हैं, so we'll be happy to cover that as well. We can also create some sessions regarding the roadmaps as well. So if you want to see any other session, you can definitely tell us in the comment section.
So thank you, Shivansh. Thank you, Deepak, for this excellent talk and live demo. Hope you guys enjoyed the talk. Thank you for joining with us. Stay safe. Bye bye.